Good evening. Yeah, evening. This is my new time slot. This is episode 30 of Angel in the Afternoon. It's actually closer to evening, or it is evening, but whatever. You know what I mean? This is episode 30. Let's get rid of this. Alright, hope everybody's had a good week and a good evening. Okay. And today we'll be talking about, of course, Israel and Palestine. We'll be also talking about Cenk Uygur running for president and much more. And one more story after that. I'll be with you guys until 8:30 Eastern. 8:30:45, so I have an hour and a half basically. Oops. Something wrong with this rickety table I have here. Sorry. I can't for some reason adjust my chair. So I'll let everybody know I'm live and then I'm gonna start. Because I'll have a pretty limited amount of time here, so let's see. All right, let's see here. Let me just make sure everyone gets this. All right, so let's get started. So so as everybody knows, we're gonna be at war, or there is a war between Israel and Palestine, or the Palestinian territory, Gaza, whatever you want to call it. And quite frankly, this war, and I find it really annoying because you have people constantly, like, it drives me crazy. You have people talking about how you have to denounce Hamas, you have to do this, they're terrible people, they're terrorists, they're baby killers, all this other shit. And meanwhile, it's like, what about all the war crimes that the Israeli government has committed for decades? We're not just talking about recent history. We're talking about 50 plus, 75 years. Depends. It depends where you're counting from. But what about all their war crimes and everything that they've done and all this other stuff? And for what? For what? There's nothing but religious fervor here. That's what this war is really about: religion and tribalism. It's like the definition of religion, and it's a definition of tribalism, because ultimately, because ultimately, there's no reason for this war. I mean, other than the fact that Israel is using the Bible, or to be fair, it's called the Torah, but the Old Testament, to justify their incursions into Gaza, and the settlers, taking land, and for reasons, it's like, oh well, our religious text told us this is our land, so let's steal all your land, let's murder you, let's brutalize you, and let's put cement in your water wells, because ultimately we are God's chosen people, and we can do whatever we want to you because you're just nothing but ragtag Arabs, who stole our land centuries ago. So when you use religion for your justification for your brutal acts, then you're not going to care about other people. You're not going to care about the people, who you're not going to care about anything. You're going to care about getting your land back because that's what your God told you to. Told you, this was your land. So, and if you read the Old Testament or Torah, this God is a very brutal, very unforgiving God. So, and it's no surprise to me that their followers, are just as brutal, just as crazy, and just as they're and just as uncaring, not giving a damn. As long as it's about us, it's about killing each other, and it's about brutalizing the people who you think are below you. So, and now there's war. Why is that there? Doesn't matter. There's war pretty much for reasons, and also there's a lot of racism involved in this war because ultimately, the Israelis consider themselves above the Palestinians, Arabs, they're going to call them. So far, Israel has attacked Gaza, the Palestinian territory. They've attacked Lebanon, and they've attacked Syria. The only country they haven't attacked is Iran. So yeah, if Israel is stupid enough to attack Iran, then they're definitely going to invade. I mean, they're not going just to take any attacks lying down. So yeah, an invasion is Iran is going to put the full force into their military into Israel. And if that happens, then the United States will come in and fully invade in order to beat back the Iranian military. And if that happens, then the Chinese and the Russians will come in to protect Iran, who's their ally. So if that worst case scenario happens, we're in World War III. I mean, this is over what? Over Israel, over a country that has been racist and genocidal and what's what I'm looking for? They do apartheid. They do that. So this is just some of the worst people you can imagine. And and to be fair, I'm not. This is not doesn't apply to all Jews. I mean, I don't or Jewish people. I don't want that Angel is hates all Jewish people. No, I mean I'm talking about specifically the government and the Zionist government in Israel. So I'm not talking about all Jewish people. I'm not talking about all Jewish people that live in Israel. I'm talking about the government in particular. So yeah, now let's get to the online left reaction, or particular professional left, who they constantly they repeat talking points that they hear in corporate media. They want us to condemn Hamas. They want us to condemn alleged terrorism because Hamas kills babies. Hamas kills baby. Hamas are terrible people, obviously, apparently. Even though let's keep it that Israel's also killed a shit ton of children and babies. So I don't know where's the professional left's outrage towards Israel on killing babies and killing women and leveling cities and brutalizing them. So why is this just Palestine or Hamas's fault? I'll never know. I mean, even though even though you have people on both sides doing this, there's something called war. War is very brutal. War is very brutal, very horrible. We're seeing the pictures coming out of the Gaza Strip on Twitter or X, and they're horrifying. This is what war really is. You don't see this in corporate media. You just see reporters jumping around and hiding in holes because allegedly there's attacks going on outside. And that's all you see. You never see the actual brutality of war, which is why most Americans don't know. I mean, it's like, okay, we've invaded 7 countries or whatever. Doesn't matter because ultimately, we don't feel the wars here at home. So who cares? Let's watch a new episode of American Idol. Whatever currently is interesting right now. Excuse me 1 second. Throat's drying. So The professional left has decided, you know, just to just to basically repeat corporate media talking points and to demand that everybody condemn Hamas for their horrible terrorism. So I want to start with all right, here we go. I want to start with Kyle Kalinske because he has the perfect, like he encapsulate the professional left in their reaction to Hamas's, you know, attack on Israel. So let me share my screen. Maybe that'll work. All right, let's do that. Let's do this. I'm not gonna play the whole video. It's just gonna be just like 30 seconds here to a minute, and then I'll react to that. So, so let's watch.
Should be brought to justice. It should be them specifically, though. And if that requires hard police work and intelligence work and takes time or whatever, that's the right thing to do as a matter of principle. So you do that. And then beyond that, what should be done is, of course, getting to the core of the problem in the first place, which led to this bubbling backlash. And the core of the problem, as we all know, anybody who's familiar with the region will tell you, is the permanent occupation, the apartheid system,
I think this is the wrong 30 seconds. Hold on. Ooh, sorry about that. I thought this was it, but
that they were using right here. Israeli Defense Minister orders that this was the immediate reaction from the Israeli government. Now, calling for a ceasefire after it happened seems like it was smart, seems like it was the right thing to do. In other words, everybody knew Israel's reaction to their civilians being wantonly killed in a brazen, illegal fashion. Everybody knew their reaction to that was effectively going to be to do the same against Palestinian civilians. Now, in that context, I agree completely. And all these bloodthirsty people looking for vengeance, which murdered civilians.
no. Yeah, anyways, I don't know exactly where it's at in the video and doesn't matter. Because ultimately my point, what I'm gonna paraphrase what he said basically, because I can't find it and I'm not gonna, you know, keep playing back and forth until I find it. Maybe I should have had it queued up, but you know, I mean, I didn't have time really this evening to actually queue up my videos the way I wanted to. So, yeah, he says something to the effect of Israel that we need to condemn Hamas for their horrible attack because of this, that, and the third. And you know, I mean, it's the same thing over and over again with these people. You know, it's like really, I want people to put themselves in the place of the Palestinians, Hamas. You know, put yourself in their shoes occupied for decade after decade after decade. They've been occupied for decades. And on top of that, Israel controls their water, they control their electricity, they control their gas, they control their food supply, they control everything. They've been occupied. So the Palestinians have no rights, they have nothing, you know, they barely have access to food and water, let alone electricity or the internet, you know. Talking about the internet, the Israelis are planning to cut off Palestinians' access to the internet today, at some point today, and they're also planning a full ground invasion of Gaza and to indiscriminately murder and clear the area of these Palestinians. So it's the reason why they're cutting off the internet because it's going to be very brutal. It's going to be horrifying, whatever pictures or video comes out of Gaza. So yeah, I want you to put yourself in that position. What would you do? Who would you support? Would you support the Palestinian Authority, the moderate government, you know, to negotiate another peace deal and negotiate a two-state solution or whatever solution ultimately comes up? Or would you want to fight and would you want to fight for your freedom and support Hamas, who are willing to fight for the freedom of the Palestinian people? Who would you support? I mean, there are generations of Palestinians who have known nothing but Israeli occupation. Generations. And imagine for a second if you're American, what we did during the revolution. Oh, that's right. We weren't free from the British Empire, so we fought the British Empire in order to be free. And there was the old battle cry, give me liberty or give me death. So would you rather be occupied for decade after decade after decade after decade, or would you rather fight and die for your cause and your belief and to free your people? What would you do? I know what I would do. I would want to fight and I would want to stand, and if I die, at least I'm able to say, well, at least I fought, and at least I didn't just give in to my oppressors, who in this case are the Israelis, Israeli government, to be fair. And there's an irony here because ultimately Israel was captured and were forced to work by the Egyptians, thousands, back in biblical times. And they fought the Egyptians, and they fought in order to gain their freedom. So yeah, now the Israeli government is doing the same thing that was done to them, in a giant irony here. So yeah, so that's now let's get to. I'm gonna get to Cenk Uygur and his presidential run in a minute, but now I want to get to this response. Oops. And oh, by the way, if you're watching, please give this video, your stream, a like. Please, please share the stream if you can, because it helps out with the algorithm. So please give me a like, and please share the stream. So we get to but first we're gonna get to this TYT video where Anna Kasparian and Cenk Uygur are covering the most recent news out of Israel Gaza, and they use the same corporate media talking points that we always hear, and you guys always hear. I'm sure if you're watching, you see the clips of corporate media on Twitter, because I'm sure I'm not watching corporate media, but if some of you may watch corporate media, then you'll be able to see what's going on. So let's do that. I'm not going to play this whole thing, of course, because I don't want to just basically, bore you guys to death or be sick of it. But I'll probably play a few minutes here and there. I'll skip around. So then I'll react to it. All right. Oops.
Israeli officials have made clear that absolutely no humanitarian aid will enter the Gaza Strip unless the Hamas militants who kidnapped Israelis release those hostages. In a statement, Israel Katz, the Israeli energy minister, said the following: "Not a single electricity switch will be flipped on, not a single faucet will be turned on, and not a single fuel truck will enter until the Israeli hostages are returned home." And what that means is that the fate of millions of Palestinians lies in the hands of these terrorists, these Hamas militants, who are so savage and so brutal that they had no problem murdering over 1,000 civilians over the weekend.
Yeah. Hold on, let me go back and make sure I understand what she said.
These Hamas militants, who that the fate of millions of Palestinians lies in the hands of these terrorists, these Hamas militants, who are so savage and so brutal that they had no problem murdering over 1,000 civilians over the weekend, including literal babies.
Literal babies? Aren't they just babies? Why not say they murdered babies? But look, this, of course, we need to condemn Hamas. We need to point out how horrible they've been. We need to point all this stuff out, because if we don't, then we look like bad people. Again, like, there's no condemnation for Israel from these people. I mean, they kind of pussyfoot around, tiptoe around the issue, talking about how, oh, it's not our fault. It's not Israel's fault. They're the victims, obviously. So you have kind of pussyfooting around on the issue. Yeah, they're doing apartheid. Yeah, they're turning off the electricity and gas, and it's a problem. But at the same time, Hamas are the evil ones. So we have to stick to those talking points if we want to keep our YouTube ad revenue streaming in. So I'm gonna play a little bit more at the beginning, and then I'll move around.
And I'm terrified for the Palestinian civilians who are now suffering as a result. This is a serious humanitarian crisis. They have nowhere to go, nowhere to flee. Their neighborhoods are being leveled. Airstrikes are constant. Israel is employing this tactic of leveling entire neighborhoods rather than just individual buildings. And Palestinians say they're unable to escape and have nowhere to go, and that entire families have been crushed under the rubble as a result of those airstrikes. On Wednesday, Gaza's only power station ran out of fuel and shut down, leaving only lights powered by scattered private generators. International aid groups warned of a worsening humanitarian crisis after Israel halted deliveries of food, water, fuel, and electricity to Gaza's 2.3 million people and prevented entry of supplies from Egypt. The war has claimed at least 2,700 lives on both sides. In fact, in Gaza alone, 1,500 people have been reported dead, with about 500 of them being children. I have more details for you, including the disaster.
Okay, so I think let's go a little further in here. Where is it? I think it's here. Yeah, start there. Yeah.
Do believe that Hamas is a terrorist organization.
Wait,
I do believe.
So Anna's gonna give her opinion on Hamas here. She loves talking about how they're terrorists and how they're terrible people. Even though Anna Kasparian needs to get out of her goddamn ivy tower and put herself in the shoes of Hamas and the Palestinians and all these people who have been suffering for decades. I mean, she never even thought about that. Instead, she's like, no, I mean, Hamas were terrorists. Let me go in my expensive, comfortable studio in Los Angeles and talk about how much Hamas are scumbags. So let's watch this.
Yeah, I agree on that 100%. I have no problem with them targeting Hamas. I do believe that Hamas is a terrorist organization. I do believe that.
Based on what? You believe something? Oh yeah, I believe that Hamas is a terrorist organization. Yeah, these are people that popped up because of the decades-long occupation of Gaza, the Palestinian territory. I mean, it's like what would you do? Again, what would you do if you're in that position? You would do whatever it takes. You would fight. You would defend yourself, and you would fight for liberty. Give me liberty or give me death. So that's what Hamas is willing to do, which is why a lot of Palestinians back Hamas. Again, you could say, not all Palestinians are responsible for this, and it's true. I'm not claiming that they are. I'm just saying, the bottom line is this: you have to, eventually enough's enough, and you have to stand up and fight, no matter how hopeless it may or may not be. So right now, there is a real possibility that Hezbollah may join this war, and maybe Syria or Lebanon, countries like this may not necessarily invade and directly help them, but at least give weapons or give support, to Hamas and the Palestinians. So instead, Anna's like, no, 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 they're terrorists. They're terrorists. They're scumbags. They're baby killers. And let's ignore all the war crimes that Israel's committed. Let's put that back here, and let's focus on Hamas.
That what they committed over the weekend in terms of their torture and murder and maiming of Israeli citizens. And
hello, thanks for joining me and watching Cowboy Kitty.
And innocent civilians in Israel was absolutely disgusting, and they should suffer the consequences.
Oh yeah. I mean, Hamas attacking innocent civilians in Israel is disgusting. That's war. I mean, I'm amazed how Anna has no idea what war is. Attacking civilians, that's outrageous. That's something called collateral damage. So yeah, so it sucks. I'm not saying that it's the right thing to do, but at the same time, this is a war, and people will die, people will be attacked, and it's horrible. But at the same time, you're not going to say, okay, I'm only going to attack IDF soldiers, the Israeli Defense Force soldiers, and we won't attack civilians. Well, that's maybe the intention, but ultimately civilians are going to get caught up in the crossfire because they're in the way. and they're running around. There's chaos. Unfortunately, civilians will die. Even if Hamas didn't target civilians intentionally, civilians are still going to die. And I don't know whether Hamas targeted civilians intentionally or not. That's something that's up in the air. I don't know. But I do know, Anna's little pretty little head here talking about, oh, I condemned them. They attack civilians. How dare they? How about Israel bombing the shit out of neighborhoods and killing a bunch of civilians? I mean, that's not really, Anna doesn't really bring that up. And so she's like, oh, Hamas is guilty. This is the professional left, and they're sticking to the corporate media talking points. A little bit more
consequences of that. But we're talking about a population of people in Gaza, half of whom are under the age of 18. These are not individuals who asked for this. These are not individuals who carried out terrorist attacks themselves. These are innocent civilians who are trying to live their lives in an untenable situation. And I want to go to the video showing scenes of what Gazans are dealing with right now as we speak. It is just absolutely tragic. It's difficult to watch, so I want to give that warning. But here is what it is like to be a Palestinian stuck in the Gaza Strip.
The Gaza City neighborhood, once known as El Rimel, the sands, reduced to ashes.
Yeah, who did this? It wasn't Hamas. It was clearly Israel. Like, they did this. This is brutal. They did this. They bombed entire neighborhoods indiscriminately for no reason. This is horrifying. This looks like, this is absolutely horrifying. But at the same time, who did it? It was Israel. It wasn't Hamas. Hamas had nothing to do with this. They didn't attack their own people. Like, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous what Israel did. There's no precision. There's nothing. It's just like, oh yeah, let's just destroy entire neighborhoods. Let's kill mostly civilians. And if we'll just claim that Hamas is taking up, they're hiding it within neighborhoods. So we have to bomb the shit out of neighborhoods and kill everybody. Excuse me. So, keep going.
Its residents retrieve what they can, which isn't much. Israel continues to pound the strip, targeting, it says, Hamas infrastructure. Residents in shock are asking.
Not all that is Hamas infrastructure, and they keep saying so. All of Gaza is basically Hamas infrastructure because they're bombing the shit out of everything. It's not just, Hamas infrastructure.
Why? I got married this year, says Yahya Lahwel. What did I do? What have we done? You destroyed an entire neighborhood. He says he never fired a rocket. In this one of the most densely populated patches of land on Earth, bombs crashing into crowded neighborhoods rarely differentiate between fighter and civilian. The death toll rises by the hour. While Gaza's hospitals are overwhelmed with the wounded, around 40% of the population of Gaza is under the age of 15, according to the CIA. The information ministry in Gaza reports.
I love how CNN just quotes the CIA. Well, according to the CIA, half the population is under 18 years old, I think he said. So, yeah, let's keep going.
That nearly 170 buildings have been.
Also, their brutality toward Palestine.
And more than 12,000 residences damaged.
And I think that Hamas's unwillingness to release the hostages not only shows their brutality toward Israeli civilians, but also their brutality toward.
How about Israel backs off, Anna? How did Israel say, okay, look, let's negotiate, let's release our hostages, we'll release your hostages, and let's try to end this in some peaceful way so no more people have to die on either side. Nope, they're just bombing the shit out of everything. Just indiscriminate bombings. And, somehow that's Hamas's fault. I mean, this is beyond absurd.
Toward Palestinians, knowing full well that this is going to continue happening and people will.
Oh, 40% under 15. No, thank you for that. I thought he said 18. But yeah, the same thing. So let's keep going. A little bit more here.
Will continue to be killed, brutalized as a result of their actions, but they don't care.
Yeah, whose fault is that? It's not Hamas's fault. It's Israel's fault. They're the one doing it. It's not Hamas. Yes, Hamas kidnapped some Americans and Israelis, and they were probably expecting that Israel and the United States may come with some sort of deal, so the Palestinians have something. Nope. Instead, it's like, fuck it, we're gonna bomb everything, we're gonna murder everybody, and we're gonna be even more brutal than Hamas is. We're gonna. It's like the whole logic of let's act like terrorists. Let's act a little bit like the terrorists, the bad guys, in order to get what we want. That's the attitude of this, and it's like, how brutal can you be? Yes, they kidnapped some Israelis, some Americans, they killed some civilians. That's war. This isn't war. This is like an extermination. Look at this. Let's go back here. Look at this. This is like, let's forget that. Look at this. You see that this isn't war. This isn't war. I'm sorry. It isn't goddamn war. This is just a country deciding to commit a genocide and terminate or exterminate an entire group of people. We call that a genocide. Apparently not. Let's see. I have some chats here. Let me read them. E. Heller says this. They're not targeting anything. They're targeting everything. Zionists are committing genocide, and Jews should stand up and call it what it is. Not in my name, never again. There are a lot of Jewish people nowadays who are not nowadays, but recently, today, in fact, there's protests around the country from not just Arabs, but also Jewish people that are saying not on my watch, not in my name, never again. So it's not just Arabs. So this is good. There's a lot of protests popping up around the country and the world, in Europe too. There's a bunch of protests. In fact, in Germany, they've made it illegal for you to even protest the Israeli occupation or anything that's going on in Israel Palestine. You only could side with the Israeli government. You cannot side with the Palestinians in Germany. So yeah, it's illegal to even protest the Israeli government. Like, how insane is that? But that's the EU. They censor everything. The censorship is okay for them. Thanks for covering. No problem. 75 Ed says 75 years of oppression, apartheid, colonial expansion, home stealing, and the murder of Palestinians is what caused this. Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's it. But the professional left blames Hamas, and they blame Hamas basically for this recent clash of violence. I covered a lot of this ground on Chicago's, by the way, Royal Rumble now. Okay. That's more people are covering this, the better, honestly, because this needs to get out there. So this is not war. This is just an extermination of a neighbor, of a people, of their land. And then if nobody helps the Palestinians, who I hope somebody does, but nobody helps them, eventually this will all be destroyed. They'll push out all these rubble and buildings and build new homes and communities for the settlers, for the Israeli settlers. So let's skip ahead. I'm not sure there's anything else I wanted to cover here. I think let's just show one more minute and then I'll move on.
Of Israelis when Hamas has control of the Gaza Strip, knowing full well.
Oh yeah, this is like the worst damage. Cenk is kind of talking about how what the Israelis have done. Kind of, he's not really going in fully into it, but he's kind of, just trying to basically give Israelis their share of the blame, which clearly the Zionist government does have this share of the blame. And Anna jumps in like, no, it's totally Hamas's fault here. So it just gets worse.
In Gaza, you saw it with your own eyes.
But let me ask you a question, Cenk, because prior to what Hamas did over the weekend, I would have agreed with you 1,000%. However, you have to understand the perspective of Israelis when Hamas has control of the Gaza Strip.
Like, she wants to, you have to understand the perspective of these Israelis, guys. Cenk, is not just the Palestinians. We have to understand their perspective. Here's the issue. Look, I think she gets mad here because they're killing some of the Israeli settlers. I'm pretty sure this is the part here. And it's like, real. I mean, those settlers are fair game. Let's be brutally honest. The settlers who are trying to settle in the Palestinian territory and steal their land, they're settlers and they're fair game because they're stealing land. So if Hamas starts killing off a bunch of them, a bunch of these settlers, it's fair game because ultimately you're stealing land and you're trying to live on land that doesn't belong to you. So unfortunately, if you get killed, you shouldn't have been there. You're fair game. I mean, at that point, you're not innocent civilians. At that point, you know you're fair game. Sorry to say that, but that's true. I mean, you shouldn't be there anyway. So if you're trying to steal land and Hamas kills you or the Palestinians kill you, that sucks. But ultimately, you shouldn't have been there. You're fair game, in my opinion. Okay, so let's read. TYT especially vile in their propaganda. That's definitely true. The real one. We all watched TYT during the Bernie movement at least the first time. Yeah, I mean that's dead though, and TYT is also dead because they tied themselves to Bernie. But I mean, you watch another minute of this, and then I'll move on to Cenk Uyghur's joke run for president because that needs to be discussed too.
Gaza Strip, knowing full well how brutal and savage they are, and how willing they are to kill literal children, literal civilians who did nothing wrong. And people try to argue.
Literal, like she says, literal children and literal babies. I'm like, just say children and babies. They're not like they're fake. It's like they're fake children and fake babies that they're killing. I mean, the way she talks is just like, like, come on. I mean, but it gets worse.
No, they're not civilians. Some of these people are settlers, and so they're part of the problem.
Yes, they are, Anna, because they're settling on land that doesn't belong to them. So yes, it is a problem. And yes, like I said just a few minutes ago, they are fair game because they're stealing land that doesn't belong to them. So they're living on land that doesn't belong to them. They don't have permission to live there. They're just taking the land. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, your house and your property now mine because we're Israelis and we're better than you. So go fuck yourselves. Sorry about that. So yeah, so they're fair game. They're fair game in a war because they're taking land that doesn't belong to them. So like imagine if we're in America and we're occupied, let's just say, by the Russians or the Chinese. Let's just say we're occupied. And literal like I'm about to say the same thing she does, like literal Russians. It's like Russians or Chinese come to the United States and the government and it's a Russian or Chinese policy to replace Americans with Russians and Chinese. How would you feel? Like these motherfuckers are stealing our land. We have to come in and we have to kill them. We have to get rid of these people that are stealing our land. It's the same thing here, same concept here. Nana's like, no, like no. I mean, they're settlers. They aren't fair game. They're civilians. No. They're fair game. They're stealing land that doesn't belong to them. So sorry about that. So she's wrong there.
Anyone making that argument is so incredibly ignorant and hateful.
We're ignorant. I'm ignorant and hateful because I point out the obvious that these settlers are stealing land that doesn't belong to them, and they're fair game in a war. So if they're afraid for their lives, do this: fuck off back to Israel. I mean, honestly, that's where you're supposed to live. That's your land, and just fuck off back to Israel because you don't belong there in Gaza and Palestinian territory, anyways. So if you're afraid, and if you're afraid that Hamas is gonna kill you, here's an idea. Just fuck off back to Israel where you belong. I mean, why trying to steal land doesn't belong to you is just beyond me. It's outrageous.
Don't even bring that BS to me, okay? But when you see the kind of threat that
He's not even open-minded about the fact that settlers are fair game in this war. It's like, really? It's like they're stealing land that doesn't belong to them, Anna. Of course they're fair game. Not only are they fair game, but I'm not surprised more of these settlers aren't killed. Hamas hasn't come out and killed more of these settlers because they're fair game. They're trying to steal land that doesn't belong to them, like I've said a million times already. So I don't understand what her point even is. It's like, okay, they may be unarmed and they may not be like a part of the IDF, but still, I mean, ultimately they're living on land that doesn't belong to them, and they're stealing people houses. and they never had permission to live there to begin with. So if Hamas kills some of them, you're fair game. And if you're scared, you should fuck off back to Israel. So you're less likely to be killed in Israel than you are staying in Gaza.
That Hamas poses to the civilian population in Israel. You can understand that perspective of fear.
And you can understand the perspective of the Palestinians who have been occupied for 75 years, who have been brutalized by the Zionist Israeli government, women and children murdered and raped and tortured. You can understand that perspective too. In fact, the Palestinians are are a lot more victims than normal Israelis. I mean, normal Israelis, because of our tax dollars, by the way, because of our tax dollars, they have free college. They have a single payer health care. They have, I'm not sure if they have a UBI. They might. I could be wrong on the UBI one, but I know they have free college and they have like a Medicare for all single payer type system because of our tax dollars. And meanwhile, we can't have it here in the United States. We can't have free college. We can't have free we can't have a single payer system because we can't afford it, but somehow we can afford to give billions of dollars a year to Israel to have these programs. Essentially, it's like, really? So they've lived a pretty comfortable existence over there in Israel. So the idea now that they've gotten attacked a tiny little bit, somehow, it's horrible. They're terrible people, and the Hamas is horrible people. Even though if you look at it from their perspective, I don't blame Palestinians for supporting Hamas. I don't. It's like, okay, give me liberty or give me death. That's probably their rallying cry right now in this war. And I hope to God that some of these other Middle Eastern countries give assistance, either in weapons or in money or in aid, whatever, in order to help the Palestinian cause. Instead, I don't want to see the Palestinian people, exterminated, whatever, because it isn't right. I mean, I've been looking at these pictures on Twitter X all day long, and it's like it honestly made me depressed. Like, I mean, this is brutal. This is what war is, and you see children maimed, and you see babies maimed, and you see like these parents like literally like just like they're done. They're done with life, and they're done. They don't care if they're killed or not. And this is how, by the way, it's how you create extremists. Because if you kill their families and you destroy their homes, they have nothing to live for. So they go like, fuck it, let me join Hamas and let me murder as many Jewish people as I possibly can because their government murdered my family. This is how you create extremists. This is how you create more members for Hamas or Hezbollah. And somehow, the United States government is shocked that Hamas would do this, would attack innocent Israelis. And talking about how much they're all terrorists and pieces of shit, and they're all animals, as government officials have said, and Jewish government officials have said, they're animals and need to be exterminated. That's what I think the defense minister literally said that, and I'm like, huh. I wonder what Hitler thought of Jews, of Jewish people, of Israelis. What did he think? He called Israelis animals, or Jewish people animals, and they need to be exterminated. Now, ironically, here comes Israel and Jews doing the same thing to Arabs, the Palestinians. But yeah, they're animals and they need to be killed, right? It's the same fucking logic that Hitler used against Jews. Now here comes Jews 75 years later after the war and uses it against Palestinians. Like, it's just a big irony, and I don't think anybody's noted that irony. And I needed to note it because, I mean, it needs to be out there. The Jewish government, the Zionists are doing the same exact thing to Palestinians that the Nazi Germany did to them, and their logic and their justifications, and it's the same thing. History is repeating itself again, and this time, instead of worldwide condemnation, there's the rest of the world, for the most part, is cheering this on. They're like fucking walruses, like like they're all cheering it on, like they're like what's happening here is it's like it's great, brown people, are dying. We love it. We in the United States and Western Europe, we love brown people dying. Wait, did I just say that out loud? I didn't mean to say that, but it's like this. That's basically what the European government is saying, and the United States. I mean, our government is most guilty. I mean, we funded Israel for decades since the end of World War II, and we in the United Kingdom or Britain or England, whatever you want to call it, they are the main purveyors of Zionism. The Zionism came from the UK for the most part, and the United States helped support it, obviously, but it came from the UK, and for 75 years, this occupation has happened, and no one said anything or done anything to rein in Israel. And now here we go. They're ready to exterminate, murder all these brown people in Gaza. And to be fair, yes, most Americans don't care. They don't know what the hell's going on. But there's a chunk of Americans protesting and trying to rein this in somehow and get the Biden administration to back off with funding. Instead, now there's a new piece of legislation in Congress basically saying, let's give billions of dollars more to Israel. Like they're the goddamn victims in this. Like they're the little guys, fighting the big bad Palestinians. They need all the money and support we can give them. Like again, Ukraine, like Ukraine, we're giving them money, billions and billions of dollars for them to die. It's like, again, here we go again, with funding a bunch of Zionist Israelis who are trying to exterminate who they consider to be a lesser people, who are the Palestinians. So I'm sorry. I mean, the the Jewish government, the Zionists, are doing the exact same thing that Hitler did to them 75 years ago, or 100 or 80 years ago, let's say, during the war. And again, nobody notes that irony. Nobody know. It's very few people actually note that. It's like Ed Heller says they don't want us pointing out the yeah, that's true, and we cannot stay silent and complicit. No, which is why I'm talking about this, because there's a lot of content creators and some content creators in this space who already been demonetized over this opinion. I personally don't care because I'm not monetized on my channel anyway. So hopefully we'll see what happens. But there's some content creators already been demonetized over their opinions on this exact thing. So so do I have to play any more of this, or am I, because I want to get to Jank running for president and laugh at him for a bit, because this is kind of depressing. I've been at this nearly an hour, so let's try a little bit more and then I'll be done with this.
Oh, of course I understand the fear.
So like, what is the solution? Because I understand where they're coming from, but I also don't want Palestinians to be brutalized like this.
Yeah, I know what the solution is. Ben and I talked about it on the first.
Jank knows what the solution is. Like, he has a solution for everything, even though a lot of the times it doesn't make sense and he makes an ass out of himself. But Jank has a solution, so let's watch his solution.
Day here, and so is it? Look, you can say it's not easy, but I actually think it is easy. And I know that sounds outrageous, but I'll tell you why in a second. Okay, so first though, I have to distinguish a couple of things. So everyone is human. I wish no one would ever get killed in a situation like this, including the soldiers. A lot of the soldiers for the Israelis are young kids, pulled out of their house, get drafted, you gotta go, okay? A lot of the people dying in Gaza Strip are kids. And by the way, if they're 17, 18, they're part of the fighting, well, hey, you attacked Israel, you had it coming, but there's still 17, 18 settlers. I think what the settlers are doing inside the Gaza Strip and the West Bank.
See what he did there? He stopped. It's like, I think the settlers, like he kind of stopped there. So I think he's about to make the same point that I did, which basically is the settlers are fair game because they don't belong there anyways. Excuse me. I ate too much spaghetti today and it's coming up, but he's about to. I'm speculating, but I think he's about to say there that what I said, that the settlers are fair game, and and Hamas ends up killing them, then they shouldn't have been there to begin with. But he stopped himself, and then he said, and he's going to say this here. But I found that interesting on that part where he just stops himself when he said talks about the settlers, and then moves on to how they shouldn't be there, and how I'm pretty sure that he says they shouldn't be there and they should leave that land, but he stops short of saying that the settlers are fair game. And there's a reason for that, obviously, because he doesn't want to lose his monetization. Because if the Young Turks, a big channel like that, said one of their hosts says something like that, then they definitely would lose monetization, and Jank would have a meltdown, and Jank would start 3 more fundraisers and beg for more money. So there's a little bit more of this.
Bank is disgusting. So
my understanding is they pulled settlers out of the Gaza Strip forcibly, okay?
Yeah, good.
And that there are settlers, yes, that is a huge problem when it comes to the West Bank. That is a problem with the West Bank.
Yeah.
But the settler argument in the context of the Gaza conflict makes absolutely no sense.
Okay, so look, what I was getting to is, it doesn't mean you get to kill settlers. They're still human beings.
Yeah, you get to kill them because they don't belong there. They're actively stealing land that doesn't belong to them and living in houses that don't belong to them. So if you have a problem, if the settlers are scared and have a problem with that, they should fuck off back to Israel. They have a better chance of living. So unfortunately, you get to kill them because they're taking land that doesn't belong to them. Yes, I have. In fact, it's on Twitter. I've seen it. Thank you, Ed, for that. You know what? I wonder if I can look that up real quick. I should have bookmarked it on my Twitter, but of course I didn't because I never get prepared and stuff. Let's see. So let me see if I can find it because I've seen it tweeted so many times. Let's see. No. Wait. That's not the one I saw, though. Here it is. This is the one I saw. Let me share this. You know what? Let's just do this. Make it bigger. There you go. You see it right here. And the left is 1947. It was called Palestine. It wasn't really a country, but it's mostly Palestinian territory. UN plan 1947 here, where it becomes Israel and the green is supposed to be Palestine. Then 1949, 1967, this is what the actual border became, which is this is the Gaza Strip here, I believe, and this is the rest of Palestine. Well, it was supposed to be Palestine, but never happened. And let's go to 2005, and here it is right here. There's even less territory here, and here's the Gaza Strip, I assume, which is that. Which is a small strip of land. If they left it alone in 1947, it would be fine today. Yeah, there wouldn't be a war. There wouldn't be what's going on today, because there'd be no reason for it. If I'm sure most of these Hamas wouldn't have popped up. I'll tell you that much. If they left it alone in 1947, there's no way that Hamas would have popped up today because there'd be no need for extremists like Hamas. It's just the Zionists. Once the Zionist vision came into Israel, as soon as they took over the government. Look at this. So from 1949, 1967, this is the beginning of the occupation. And then by 2005, this doesn't even list today. By 2005, this is all we have. This is all the Palestinian territory, which is that little green spots there. It's just beyond outrageous, and most Western governments have sanctioned it. Instead of telling Zionists to go fuck themselves and no, you're not going to do that, going to steal land that doesn't belong to you. Because they use the Bible. I don't have a Bible on me. I don't have a Bible around here because I really don't read it. I have a Bible over there in the living room. I'm not going to get it because you get the point. They have a Bible. It's this. Essentially, is this. This is what they believe in. The Bible, and they justify all their war crimes and all the murders of women and children and everything by using the Bible. It's the same thing Hitler did to the Jews. Again, how did he justify his crimes? The Bible, the fucking Bible. So it's actually, to be fair, they use the Old Testament as the Torah. So that's how the Zionists justify their war crimes and their brutality and their horrifying crimes. How does Hitler justify his crimes? The Bible. So again, there's more hypocrisy. There's more irony here. So if you go back to that map, I mean, I look. What's the solution? Fuck if I know. I mean, a two-state solution. I've talked about this on Twitter beginning of the week, and I was kind of criticized for that. And I'm not an expert on what's going on in Israel Palestine. I just use common sense, and I use my brain as like, what would I do if I'm in this position? Who would I support? I use a lot of common sense. I'm not an expert in the region, obviously, but what I'm but when I used like the two-state solution idea, I was criticized for that, and and on Twitter, even by some members of INN. And again, I'm not an expert at it, and I'm open to criticism. I mean, I'm not perfect, and I'm not arrogant enough to think, well, I'm always right. Like Jank claims, he's always right. So yeah, I'm not that arrogant to think that, but yeah, I mean, I don't know what the solution is, a two-state solution, a one-state solution. I've heard arguments about how Israel as a country shouldn't exist. I've heard those arguments. I see the super chat. I'll get to it in a minute, but I just want to finish my thought before I forget. And I just forgot my thought. Oh, jeez. Let's see. Israel, Palestine. Damn, I totally forgot my train of thought. I should have kept going. Shit. Israel, 1947 borders. I can't remember right now. Hopefully, I remember. Let me get to the super chat. Thank you, Oz, for the super chat. Pair character punching in air with fist and bump written on his knuckles. Uh, I forgot my train of thought. And I wanted to say this too before I wrapped up, but I forgot my train of thought. And I even forgot what I was even talking about leading up. Whoops. Sorry about that. Leading up to that. Jesus Christ. Zionist. Thank you, Fred. Two-state solution doesn't exist. So the two-state. Some people said two-state solution. I thought that initially. It's like, yeah, let's do a two-state solution. I was criticized for that, and it's fair criticism. I'm not an expert in the region, so I don't know about the details. Some people, I've read one-state solution, like just have Israelis and Palestinians share one country. That would be nice, but totally unrealistic at this point. There's no way that these two groups are able to stay together and stay friendly. So that's not going to happen. And I've seen some arguments from people talking about how Israel shouldn't exist as a state. That it just should be Palestine. Land doesn't belong to them. I like that. It's an interesting thought process, but at the same time, I think is unrealistic because that bell isn't rung when you can't unring a bell. Once you ring a bell, it's not going to happen. So you cannot just not make Israel a state anymore. I don't think that's a realistic proposal. I mean, I see the point because Israel was created by the UN and by the United States and by Britain, by the UK. But at the same time, you can't like unring that bell. You can't unring that bell. So that's not realistic either. So I don't know what's the solution. I mean, I don't know. It's just going to be permanent war. Is that the solution? I hope not. But like they're going to fight each other for decade after decade, like kind of like other civil wars have happened over the years. Let's see. Ed Heller says Zionists wants an ethno snake. That's the problem. Yeah, and they're just like Nazis and wanting one race to run a country. There's an irony there. What the Zionists are doing are exactly what Hitler did to them. I mean, I've said that like a million times, but the point still stands. All right, so an hour. I spent an hour talking about this. Well, it's a very important issue, and I think more content creators with a lot of R should call this out. Should call out Israel and the United States for supporting Zionism and supporting a genocide of a people. So now let's get to Cenk Uygur's presidential run because I probably gonna stay live until 8:30 or 8:40. So go back. Okay, that's not important. I'm done with that. So as you guys know, Cenk Uygur is running for president. A joke run because this isn't serious. Wait, why is this not? Okay, here we go. Yeah, here we go. Okay. So Cenk Uygur is running for president. It's a giant joke. No one should take it seriously. But he's running for president, and in his head, he thinks that naturalized citizens are allowed to run for president because of a Supreme Court decision. By the way, that Supreme Court decision is wrong. He's applying it incorrectly, but Cenk claims that case law supports his running as a naturalized citizen. Yeah, it doesn't. But let's because I'm going to show you why it doesn't. But let's hear Cenk Uygur make his ridiculous legal arguments.
Welcome back to TYT. We're interviewing Cenk Uygur, who's just announced that he is
We're interviewing Cenk Uygur. Again, that's always like when he ran for Congress, they did the same thing. They used TYT assets in order to quote unquote interview Cenk Uygur, and he ran for Congress. Now here we go again. They're doing the same thing. They were interviewing Cenk Uygur, promoting his presidential run by using TYT assets, which is very likely a campaign finance violation because it happened to in 1996 to Steve Forbes when he ran for president. And he used Forbes magazine, or allegedly used Forbes magazine to support his run for president. And the FEC sued him, in fact, in court over it. So ultimately, the case was dismissed, I believe, if I remember correctly. But this has happened before. Cenk Uygur is using TYT assets in his company in order to promote his presidential run. And I'm pretty sure if the FEC wanted to pursue it, they could. It's a campaign finance violation. But I digress. That's not really much what I want to get to.
running for president and challenging President Joe Biden in the primary. So, Cenk, the big issue, the big obstacle kind of standing in your way is the fact that you were born in Turkey, you immigrated to the United States at 8 years old, you are a naturalized citizen, but my understanding is that only US-born citizens can run for president. You disagree with that. Why?
Yeah, the case law is completely on my side. So this conventional wisdom, we've all heard it. We heard it in 8th grade civics class, and it's stuck in our heads. It was an easy thing to remember, right? Oh, if you're not born here. And by the way, there's 25 million Americans who are naturalized citizens. And every one of us has heard about 200 times in our lives, you can't run for president. Now, look, guys, the people who say that, they just remember it from school. They don't mean any harm by it, right? But for those of us who hear it, what we're hearing is you're not really fully American. We don't trust you. You're from a different country. Mm-hmm. And so the reason that the founding fathers put that in the first place was because at the time they were worried about royal princes that come into the bloodline and find a way to snake control away to a foreign government. That stuff's not at all relevant anymore. And it's obviously not fair. It's super not fair. There's Ted Lieu, who's in Congress now and who's a colonel in the Air Force. What is he not? He's loyal to Taiwan because he came when he was 3. It's absurd. But none of that matters. The only thing that matters is the case law. And the Supreme Court has already.
There is no case law that basically says, oh yeah, naturalized citizens can run for president. There's no case law like that. That would be a huge deal if the Supreme Court would say yes, naturalized citizens can run for president. and not just natural born citizens. So there's no case law like that. He's extrapolating one case here. He's about to cite. I think it's like Megan. I don't remember. I will watch it in a second, but he uses this one case law to extrapolate that yes, naturalized citizens can run, even though the Supreme Court didn't say that, and they can't say that anyways, even if they wanted to.
Has already ruled is Schneider v. Rusk. I asked you guys if you would do graphics. Do you have those graphics or no?
We do. Yeah, let's put them.
So
I asked you. I asked you guys if you would make graphics. Jank, you're the boss. Like you can tell him. You can tell your employees to make graphics for you. Like this, the skirting campaign finance law. That's why Jank is like, oh, I asked you guys. I asked you if you could make graphics, and you did. Did you do it for me? It's like he like instead of saying. Like he asked, like the skirting campaign finance law here. But I digress, it's not that important.
Yeah, and I wanted to show you guys this so you can see it with your own eyes. And thank you for humoring me on that. And so this is from a law review article in University of Illinois, and it shows you definitively that Schneider v. Rusk has already decided this issue.
No, it hasn't.
So they had an issue that came up where naturalized citizens were being treated different than natural born citizens. So here's what the court wrote. This is the Supreme Court in that case. The statute proceeds on the impermissible assumption that naturalized citizens as a class are less reliable and bear less allegiance to this country than do the native born. This is an assumption that is impossible for us to make. Moreover, while the Fifth Amendment contains no equal protection clause, it does forbid discrimination that is so unjustifiable as to be violative of due process. A native born citizen is free to reside abroad indefinitely without suffering loss of citizenship. The discrimination.
Schneider is a case that basically held that you cannot discriminate against naturalized citizens. That's basically what Schneider held. But that doesn't mean that naturalized citizens can run for president. So he's extrapolating this. What's Jank's doing?
Discrimination aimed at naturalized citizens drastically limits their rights to live and work abroad in a way that other citizens may. It creates indeed a second-class citizenship. So the Supreme Court ruled it is unconstitutional to discriminate against naturalized citizens.
Yeah.
This issue.
It is unconstitutional because they're citizens. That doesn't mean you can run for president. Oops.
Was actually already settled. Just no one knows it. So I'm going to try to get this albatross off of all of our necks. If you're one of those 25 million Americans, that alone is a reason to go to jankforamerica.com and support what I'm doing, because I'm going to make
jankforamerica.com. Come on, man. All right, let's keep going.
I'm going to try my best to make us all 100% citizens. And I think the Supreme Court is clearly on our side. I'll read one last thing. Thank you for humoring me on this. The law review article of University of Illinois concluded.
They didn't humor you. You're the boss. You tell them I want these graphics done, and they say yes, sir. I mean, this isn't like they humored you.
This should be the end of the story. Schneider is clear that treating natural-born citizens and naturalized citizens differently is contrary to the Fifth Amendment. Forbidding naturalized citizens from being president or vice president is a form of discrimination that limits their options and treats them as second-class citizens.
All right, this is the opinion of the lawyer who wrote this for the University of Illinois Law School or Law Review. That's the opinion of the lawyer who wrote this. Doesn't mean it's not like it's Supreme Court precedent or it's precedent in court. This is just the opinion of this person, which Jank takes and extrapolates it to somehow it's legal. Somehow it's legal. It's not. Excuse me. It's law of the land, but that naturalized citizens can run. That's not the case. It's the opinion of this legal scholar, basically.
Citizens. It is not permissible. It is unconstitutional.
So while I agree with that take.
All right. So let's get to what the Constitution actually says who can run for president, because this is important. Because Cenk Uygur is claiming that it's unconstitutional for naturalized to not allow naturalized citizens to run for president. That is discrimination, and it violates the Equal Protection Clause in the Constitution. an equal protection under the law. Excuse me. So let's get to this. Oops, fucked up. That's way too small. Let's actually try to do that. All right, here we go. The U.S. Constitution states that the president must, and there's only three qualifications, three standards. So let's go from the bottom to the top. Have been a resident of the United States for 14 years. Okay, so Cenk would qualify under that. Be at least 35 years old. Okay, he would qualify under that. The top one, the number one qualification, be a natural born citizen of the United States, which Cenk isn't. So he can't run for president. It's not even an amendment. This is in the original text of the Constitution. So what Cenk is arguing for essentially is that this part of the Constitution is unconstitutional. I can't believe how you believe how do you realize how absurd that is? It's like the original text, this part of the Constitution is unconstitutional. So is that what he wants the Supreme Court to rule on? Like, oh yes, this part here to be a natural born citizen of the United States, that part is unconstitutional, even though it's in the Constitution. It's literally listed out in the Constitution. Like, you must be a natural born citizen of the United States to be president. Jesus Christ. I want to see. Yeah, so okay, so that's not important. So let's go back here. So by that logic, Jane can't run for president. Fred Edward, I like this. Hashtag forced to vote and hashtag Jane24 clown face. Yeah, it's a clownish. I mean, his legal argument made no sense. He wants the Supreme Court to rule that you must be a natural born citizen of the United States unconstitutional. In other words, it's unconstitutional what's in the Constitution. Classic Cenk Uygur. Terrible lawyer. He's an embarrassment in the legal profession because no lawyer would, in their right mind, make this argument that the main part of the Constitution, that part, is unconstitutional. It makes no sense. I can't believe that he makes his argument a straight face. He's like, this is a really, really stupid man here.
Take, I certainly agree with that take. The Constitution also says the following. Okay, so this is Article 2, Section 1, Clause 5 of the United States Constitution. No person except a natural.
So this is basically Anna challenging Cenk here, attempting to. Article 2, Section 1, Clause 5. I was looking for this, but I couldn't really find it. So luckily, I forgot that Anna has the text here. So it's like, good, I'm glad. That way I don't have to actually find it.
Natural born citizen or a citizen of the United States at the time of the adoption of this Constitution shall be eligible to the office of president. Neither shall any person be eligible to that office who shall not have attained to the age of 35 years and been 14 years a resident within the United States.
So Anna, it's a great question, especially because
the key there, let me go back for a second. It says no person except a natural born citizen or a citizen of the United States at the time of the adoption of this Constitution. In other words, the only way you can run for president is be a natural born citizen or a citizen of the United States at the time of this adoption, which doesn't apply to Cenk. Neither of these apply to Cenk. So he has no legal argument. Essentially, he's going to waste the court's time if he seriously goes forward with these cases, which I don't think that he is. So I'll explain why I think he's actually running for president.
especially because for folks who are not familiar with constitutional law, but although
and you are, Cenk, you're familiar with constitutional law. I'm more familiar with constitutional law. I'm not even a lawyer.
all of you will get it instantly. The amendments obviously amend the original Constitution,
right?
And what I just read to you,
there was no amendment saying that naturalized citizens can run for president. If Cenk were to say, hey guys, I'm running for president, I know I can't be president, but what I'm doing is I'm fighting for a constitutional amendment so naturalized citizens can actually run for president. I'm like, okay, he's honest. He can't be president. He's running for president in order to bring to attention to the issue that naturalized citizens should be able to run for president and pass that constitutional amendment. We can have a debate back and forth eventually whether naturalized citizens should be able to run. Me personally, I don't care enough in order to, even think about it. But right now, as of now, the Constitution clearly says that you can't, a naturalized citizen can't run for president.
To you, Schneider, is the Supreme Court said very clearly that the Fifth Amendment amended the Constitution to make naturalized citizens have the same exact rights because of.
No, the Supreme, yeah, but that doesn't mean you can run for president. It's like he's extrapolating case law that doesn't apply to the fact that he can't run for president, and he still can. Because the Constitution is clear, that part was not amended. You would have to pass a separate amendment in order to say, yes, naturalized citizens can run for president. And the part of the Constitution that says that they can't has been amended. But that part has not been amended. Jesus Christ. Oops.
Because of due process. And later, Fifth Amendment jurisprudence in America also includes the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. So if you want to undo that, you'd have to wipe away a giant chunk of American jurisprudence, which they would have to go wildly against precedent to do. And so that part has simply been amended out of the Constitution. It is absolutely clear.
No, it hasn't. The naturalized citizen part has not been amended out of the Constitution. His legal argument is completely ridiculous. It's like he basically wants the federal courts to declare one of the main parts of the Constitution unconstitutional. It makes no fucking sense. But he's making this argument with a straight face, which is unbelievable.
Schneider. And by the way, if you're saying, yeah, but Cenk, are you going to have the resources to be able to do this? They take this case to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, it's a good question. And are you lawyering up? Like, what's your plan? Because this will be challenged if you are seen as enough of a threat to the Democratic Party.
No question. So
Cenk Uygur is no threat to the Democratic Party, by the way. So Anna is just like, oh, if you become enough of a threat. Bullshit. He got 5% of the vote when he ran for Congress. I don't know what makes Anna think that he can get more than 5% support in a presidential run if he ever even included in polling, which he's not going to be.
So I have lawyered up. I have the same lawyer Bernie Sanders used in both of his presidential runs.
Wait. If that's true, then Bernie Sanders lawyer is an idiot, because there's no way that this legal argument would even. You get laughed out of court if you try to bring that legal argument in federal court. I don't think it would even get past the first judge that looks at this. It's like, really? You want me to declare main part of the Constitution unconstitutional? That makes no sense.
And my guess is I'm going to have some strong allies in this. Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm going to the Supreme Court.
Arnold Schwarzenegger? Are you kidding me? You want Schwarzenegger to give you money? That's basically what he's implying. He wants Arnold Schwarzenegger to give him money in order to take this all the way to the Supreme Court. That's what he's implying, at least. Schwarzenegger doesn't even know who the fuck you are, Cenk. I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger. I can't do a German accent or an Austrian accent, but you get the point. It's completely absurd.
Either I'm going to win or I'm going to lose. Now, the case is on our side. Precedent is definitely on our side.
No, it's not.
So what are you going to do, brother? Are you going to sit on the sidelines? Or, by the way, not just Schwarzenegger, 25 million Americans. Aren't you guys sick?
25 million Americans don't know who the fuck you are, Cenk. So you're not going to get any money from 25 million naturalized citizens to take this cockamamie case to the Supreme Court.
Look at this. Here, I'll give you one last example. Rahm Emanuel, born in America, but went and served in the Israeli Defense Forces. No problem, I got no beef with that, okay? But he can run for president. He served in a foreign army, but can run for president. Patrick Bet-David, right winger, okay, was on his show.
Because Rahm Emanuel is a natural born citizen. That's why he can run for president, even though he served in a foreign army. The Constitution is clear on this. I don't know why Cenk's acting like it isn't.
He's a Christian Armenian from Iran. His family fled from the Iranian Revolution. He was in the 101st Airborne. He served in our army. So Patrick Bet-David can't run for president. even though he served in our army.
No, he can't run for president, Cenk. He's Iranian. He's born in Iran. So that means that he can't run for president. The Constitution is clear on this. Like, there's not been amended. There's no Supreme Court decision that says naturalized citizens can run. Nothing. There's nothing about that. The only thing that Schneider held was naturalized citizens cannot be discriminated against. They have the same rights of natural born citizens. That's it. That's the ruling. That's the decision. It's not like all of a sudden you can extrapolate that to say, oh, yeah, by the way, naturalized citizens can now run for president. Absurd. Fred Edward with a great comment. Hear me read it. Cenk's a joke. Cenk's campaign is a joke. After explaining his irrational claims, his campaign rhetoric is bonkers. I hope to ignore him beyond forced a joke. Yeah, I won't be covering Cenk's campaign, his joke of a campaign. This is the one time I will. I'm not going to mention it again unless he says something over the top and ridiculous, and then I'll make fun of him. So other than that, if he doesn't, then this is the last time I even discuss it. Just a few more seconds.
And what is this? Does he owe allegiance to Iran that he ran from? But Rahm Emanuel, who served in a foreign army, can run for president. It makes no sense.
It makes perfect
25
sense.
million Americans, JenkForAmerica.com. We're gonna win this case in the Supreme Court. We're gonna win it, and that alone is gonna make a giant difference. I'm sick of this discrimination.
It's not discrimination. It's what the Constitution's clear on this. It's not discrimination. But let's look at Cenk for America's website, because the website's a joke. I can't believe it's like the most bare bones website you ever seen. There's no policy on it, or there's barely any policy on it. It's just, I'll show you here. So here's Cenk Uygur's website. It's a joke. It's embarrassing. But let's all you have is a homepage here. You have Cenk for America. You have a Twitter thing. You have donate. You have a few words here. The most important election of our lifetimes. We need a new candidate, blah, blah, blah. Biden's down 13 points. Biden's Trump behind 24 points. You have another donate thing. You have two donate buttons here. Here's the donation thing. I can't believe 3,240 people donated to Cenk Uygur. I mean, there's a sucker born every day. But let's get rid of this, though. Ah, shoot. I closed the whole fucking thing out. I didn't mean to do that. Okay, let's share my tab. There we go. Policy. Meanwhile, it's only 4 policies. Time off for mothers, paid family leave, higher wages, $15 minimum wage. By the way, that we moved on $15, Cenk. We're up to like $25 an hour, but whatever. Affordable health care, public option, 68%. By the way, there's no Medicare for all here. Did you notice that? These are the 4 policies that Cenk is pushing. And I didn't show my fucking thing. Oh, God. Just so stupid. All right, see, these are the 4 policies. Let me try this again. Time off for mothers, paid family leave. That's still holding 84%. Higher wages, $15 an hour. We moved on from that. We're at 25. Affordable health insurance, public option. There's no Medicare for all there. You notice that? Like, Cenk is running on public option and fighting corruption and gerrymandering, blah, blah, blah. Ending gerrymandering, there's name, blah, blah, blah. Interesting volunteering. No, fuck off. Question about the campaign. Email info@cenkforamerica.com. Press inquiries, press at cenkforamerica.com. Blah, blah, blah. There's the address. This is all it is. It's one of the most bare bones campaign websites I've ever seen. I guarantee you, I know my teenage nephew can make a better website than this. This is a joke. But this is a Twitter thing here. As you guys can see, Cenk Uygur blocked me a while ago. I'm blocked. So, yeah, I'm blocked. That's his official campaign Twitter page. So, let's go. Fred Edwards says, potential chance of getting hearing before Supreme Court. Is zilch null nope, nothing. He's not going to get this from the Supreme Court. Even somehow, if it gets to the Court of Appeals and they rule against them, Supreme Court take one look at this case and laugh their asses off and just go with the lower court, with the Court of Appeals ruling. But Cenk won't get there. He won't get that far. I guarantee he won't get that far. Potential chance of getting this hearing before SCOTUS, before election. No, before election, definitely not. Even after the election, he won't get it from the SCOTUS because they'll laugh him out of court. Like, no, I can't believe he wasted our time and money. Let's just keep the lower court ruling. All right, that Fred says this list isn't really policies. No, it's just 4 ridiculous things. Like paid time, a paid family leave. What was the other one? Paid family leave, higher wages, affordable health insurance, fight corruption. It's like the laziest fucking website I've ever seen. I guarantee you, my teenage nephew could make a better website than this for a campaign. So I'm just about going to wrap up. It's 8:30 already, but I'm going to cover one more thing and then I'll be done because it's getting kind of late. Let's see. Oh, bookmarks. Duh. All right. I'm going to wrap up here and I'm just going to cover this one fun story and then I'll be done. So there's a Harvard law professor that claims that Asians, multiracials, and Latinos are equals to quote honorary whites. This is beyond ridiculous. I thought this is what I said. I'm Latino, so I'm on top of the racial pyramid. Geez, I'm proud to be Latino, but these Ivy League schools are gone way too far. Yep, they definitely are. So this is from Matt Orfla. So it's not a minute long, this video. Let's watch this and then I'll react and then I'll wrap up because it's getting to be a little late. And boats smash into other boats is at 10 o'clock Eastern. So stay tuned to INN's YouTube channel and check that out. So let's watch.
Okay, so today I'd like to talk about, well, institutions of racial domination and the modes through which they operate. The title, I don't know how well you can see.
This is way too small, but I can read it. You can see there on top of the racial pyramid, whites, Germans, Irish, Italians, assimilated Latinos, Argentines, Chileans, and Cubans, new white immigrants, Russians, Serbians, and Albanians. I love the specificity of that. It's like Albanians, not Kyrgyzstan, not any of those countries, but Albanians. Honorary whites, light and medium skinned Latinos. I don't know what assimilated Latinos mean. I'm assuming assimilated Latinos means Latinos only speak English, but I mean, I don't understand what that is. And there's the honorary whites and then collective blacks. I mean, the Ivy League institutions are they have way too much time in their hands. This is insane.
See this, but it's just a pyramid with the racial hierarchies in the U.S. with whites at the top, honorary whites, including Asian people, multiracials, etc., lighter skinned, medium skinned Latinos, and at the bottom, a collective group of blacks. Depending on what race scholars you look to, this might look somewhat different, especially what happens in the middle. Except at the bottom, you almost always have some grouping of black folks, and at the top, some grouping of white folks. Who comes in the middle tends to shift depending on who's leading that conversation. And so what this conversation today is about, what I'd like to kind of initiate is a conversation about what helps to explain persistent racial hierarchies in the U.S. Because a very strong, easy argument to make is that this has not shifted much since the country's founding.
Blah, 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 doesn't matter much. I just wanted to cover that because I found that so funny. I just found that like beyond funny. It's like, really? Latinos are on the top of the racial hierarchy? Okay, you do understand that we're discriminated against all the time, especially brown Latinos or black Latinos. We're discriminated against all the time, even though I'm much more lighter than your average Latino. But still, I mean, we're all discriminated against all the time. So this isn't. I don't know why she thinks that Latinos in the top of racial hierarchy. But okay, you're an idiot. You Ivy League institutions are wasting your fucking times with this. This is nonsense. And yeah. So you're these Ivy League institutions, don't go to them. They cost a shit ton of money, and you're not learning anything new. You're learning basically the same stuff that I learned when I was in community college, and it was 95% cheaper than going to Harvard or Rider or whatever, or any of these Ivy League or Brown University or Cornell. You're wasting your money. So don't go to those fucking schools and take out hundreds of thousands of dollars in loans to go to these schools. Nobody cares anymore. You have a degree from Cornell, employers don't give a shit today. They'll hire anybody, because especially if you have a lesser degree, because you won't cost, your labor won't cost as much. So don't waste your time. If you're rich daddy billionaire, your daddy's a billionaire, then yeah, go to Brown or go to Harvard, go to Cornell, whatever. But if you're poor, middle class, don't waste your money going to these schools. Don't ruin your life and ruin your credit to go in one of these schools, which you're never able to pay back those loans anyway, most likely. So, but I digress. That's going to do it for this episode of Angel in the Afternoon / Evening, because it's getting late. Hey, Snow, thank you for joining me in the last 5 seconds, but not because nobody wants to work anymore. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to work. Fuck that. But, I have to work. But do you think I want to work these shitty jobs I work? Hell no. Hell fuck no. Well, I digress though. That'll wrap up. I'm going to wrap up the stream because my ass is killing me. I have a shitty seat here and I can't really stay seated much longer, especially at least in this seat. That's the main reason why I'm wrapping up. And also, it's almost 9 and I have to take a shower and I'm hot. And, I have nothing else to talk about. Well, until next Friday, make sure you like the stream. Make sure you subscribe to the channels. Make sure you share the stream. And if you make sure, because people will watch after the stream is over. So I want to thank you guys very much for watching. I want to thank you guys for the chat. I want to thank you for any super chats, which, there were one, but, still, I mean, thank you for the $3, Oz. Greatly appreciate it. And I'm going to see you guys next Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Same time, same place, same channel. Well, thank you very much. Until next time, until next Friday, I'll see you guys soon. Have a nice weekend and don't drink too much. Don't get high too much. I mean, most of us have to go to work on Monday. So don't do any of that good stuff. I mean, don't do too much of that good stuff. Do some of it, but don't do too much. Well, until next Friday, I'm going to see you.